Have you ever had a dream or a goal, and some days that dream or that goal felt so close so you could almost taste it? Felt like it was just around the corner. If you just took one more step, did one more thing, you were going to get that the accomplishment that you were looking for. And yet, then other times it felt like that dream or that goal was so far away. You do the work, you put in the effort, and then when you look up, you're like, it just still seems so far off. And the crazy thing is sometimes that those two feelings could be just a day apart. Now, I've had feelings like this, at different times throughout my life, but I feel like I've had them more since I've started my personal development journey, my quest to live the more intentional life. And I think a reason for that is because when you start trying to live more intentionally and grow and develop, you start becoming more aware of what your actual goals are, what you really do want to accomplish. And so throughout my personal development journey over these past couple of years, I've had to deal with that feeling of I know I've made progress, I know I've done work, and yet that goal or that dream, that big thing that I'm trying to accomplish still seems so far away. And so that's what I want to discuss today. So let's talk about it. So what do you do when you're trying for a goal or a dream and you look up and it just still seems so far off? Well, number one, you have to understand that that feeling is completely normal. Just because you feel like your dream is so far off does not mean you haven't made progress, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with what you're doing to attain that goal, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. That's just part of the process. To attain a goal or to attain a dream, you don't just work to attain the thing, you're going to have to change in the process. And the bigger the goal or the bigger the dream, the more you're going to have to change, the more that process is going to be. The second thing I would say is that you need to recognize that feelings can be misleading. Feelings are not truth. Feelings are so changeable, they're so fickle. Just think about how quickly your feelings can change. Sometimes you can change how you feel by just taking a nap, or you can change how you feel just by eating a candy bar or drinking a good cup of coffee. Think about when you're at work. You could be going along in your job, and if your boss comes in and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, man, you did a bang up job on that project. I just want you to know it worked out great. Good job." All of a sudden, your feelings are elevated. But the same boss could come in a different day and say, "Hey, this project we're working on, it's taking too long. You're the project manager. I need you to step it up." And what happens? Your feelings are down. One conversation can make your feelings skyrocket or plummet. If one person can come into your life and completely change how you feel, that should tell you that you should not live according to your feelings. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in the world today is people, for some reason, have determined that feelings equal truth. That if they feel a thing, that must be the right thing. If they feel like a rock star, then they believe they're a rock star. But if they feel like a failure, then they believe they're a failure. If they feel like somebody owes them something, whether it's their spouse or their work or the government, whatever, if they feel like somebody owes them something, then they just believe that. They believe this person owes me this just because I feel it. If you're going to live your life according to feelings, one, you're going to make a lot of stupid mistakes, but two, you're going to be miserable because feelings are so changeable. Now, that doesn't mean we disregard feelings or we ignore feelings, because sometimes your feelings can be an indication that something's not quite right. Your feelings can be an indication that you're out of alignment with what you're really trying to accomplish. But what you need to do is understand that feeling is just an indication that you need to look deeper. Your feelings should not be the evidence. Your feelings should not be the thing that makes you make a decision. What you need to do is you need to examine your feelings, understand what you are feeling, and then say, okay, what is the evidence of that? Do I just need a nap, or is this an indication that something's off? But I firmly believe that feelings alone should never be your only or even your primary reason for doing anything, because feelings are so changeable. So when you're doing the work and you're putting in all the effort to reach a goal or reach a dream, and you feel like you're not making any progress, you feel like your dream or your goal is so far off, just understand those feelings could lie. Just understand that just because you feel that way, that's not true. You could be one more video away or one more successful project away from reaching that goal, but some people almost want to give up just because they feel like they're never going to reach that goal. understand feelings can be an indication that something's off. They need to be looked at, but they should not be the evidence of anything because feelings are so changeable. The third thing you should do is to recognize that all progress is not simple. All progress is not smooth. You know, when you start off on a journey, whether it's the journey of personal development, the quest to live the more intentional life, whether it's to reach a goal of losing a certain amount of weight or getting a certain job, whatever it is, you know, when you start off on that journey, when you create that goal or that dream, often your motivation is really high. Often you can see the thing very clearly of what you want to accomplish, and there's almost this honeymoon phase of the journey where you're excited and you're doing it and you're like, okay, I'm on the journey to get there. But you know, after a while, it kind of becomes the slog. You know, Brendan Burchard calls it the messy middle. You know, when you're in the progress of doing something, the beginning was great, the beginning was exciting, but now you're putting in the work. You know, during this process of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, there's going to be things that you really enjoy doing, and it's the exciting thing. But then there's also part of that process that you're going to have to grow in that's not exciting to you. It's not the thing you want to do. You know, part of that process is going to be learning. You know, again, we talked about how getting to that goal, particularly the more lofty the goal is, the more you have to change. Well, it requires a learning process. And in the learning process, there are times you learn what works. You did a thing and it created massive results and it pushed you ahead and you're super excited. But part of the learning process is also learning what doesn't work. And you might have made a decision and fell flat on your face. And now you have to get up and now you have to brush yourself off. And you might have to admit to people around you that that was a mistake, that this does not work for what we're trying to do. Well, all of that means that this process, or what Brendan calls the messy middle, is full of ups and downs. It's full of starts and stops, moving fast, moving slow, and that's the messy middle. And if you're in the middle of that, there's going to be times where you feel super close to your dream or your goal, and there's times going to be that you just feel so far away. It's all part of the process, and it's okay. The fourth thing that I would say and I would recommend is always keep moving forward. Keep the momentum going. You know, if you have identified something that's not working, you know, part of that messy middle, you have these feelings, you recognize them, you begin to analyze them, and you realize something's out of alignment and I do have to make a change. Well, in the process of making the change or making the adjustment, just make sure you don't lose momentum. You know, as far as this channel's concerned, after a year of doing videos, it's not where I'd like the channel to be. So I'm thinking about, are there things that I need to change? Are there's processes I need to change, the way I need to look at something? I'm looking at all my options of, is there something that I need to do different in order to continue making progress to what I want this channel to be. But in that process of looking at that and doing that, you know, it'd be kind of foolish for me to say, okay, I don't know what the next thing is, so I'm just going to stop recording videos for the next 6 months. I need to take time to figure out what this is supposed to be. Well, I could do that, but I would lose a year's worth of momentum. But while I'm doing this, I can make changes on the fly. I don't need to have all the answers, and I can keep creating these videos every single week. And if I have an idea one week, I can go ahead the next time I'm in the studio, I can try that thing and I can look at, did it do good or did it do bad? And I can make the adjustments, but I keep moving forward. I keep the momentum. The fifth thing that you should do when your goal or your dream seems so far off and you're looking down the road and you're just like, man, I don't even know if I'm ever going to reach this. Sometimes the best thing you can do is look behind you and see how far you've actually come. I've said this many times before, but my wife and I, we love the mountains. We love driving through Colorado, through Wyoming. And there are times when you're driving, particularly I have this vision of when we're driving to Colorado, and there's this one stretch of road where everything's pretty flat. There's just small rolling hills, but it's pretty flat, a lot of open land. But down the road, miles and miles and miles away, you can actually see the first peaks of those mountains. And you can see them in the far off. And that's my destination. That's where I want to go. But there are times where you look at them, you get your first sight of them, and you feel like, okay, I'm almost there. But then you might drive another hour or two, and those mountains don't look any closer. But if I look behind me and realize how far we've come, I realize I have made progress. We have gotten closer to our destination. Just because the destination doesn't look closer doesn't mean I haven't put all of that road behind me. And so sometimes when you're really feeling like, man, I don't even know if I've made progress toward my goal or my vision, well, look behind and look at what you've already accomplished. Look at what you've already learned. Look at how much road is behind you, and you'll realize just because it doesn't look closer doesn't mean I haven't made progress toward it. The sixth thing that I would do when you're on a journey and you're trying to reach a goal or to reach a dream, and it feels like that goal or that dream is so far off, is I would bring your why into your present. When you started the journey, there was a reason you started the journey. You had a why, and hopefully you made it a clear why. Hopefully you figured out, this is why I'm on this journey. This is why it's so important to me to reach that destination. And you might start off, your why is super clear, but when you get into that messy middle, when you get into that place where you have the ups and the downs, the starts and the stops, the falling on your face, sometimes your why can become unclear. And when you're looking at the distance that it appears your goal or your dream is still is, that's when you start feeling like, well, maybe I shouldn't even be doing this. Maybe I should just give up. Well, that's when you need to bring your why back into your right now. That's why you need to say, okay, looking back at how far I've come, the reason I've come as far as I have is for this reason. And the reason I'm going to keep going toward that journey or toward that destination is for this reason. Sometimes literally just reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing is enough to make it feel like, okay, I am a lot closer than I was before. And then the last thing that I would recommend is just understand that some things in life take time, and we don't always like time. We don't always like the process. We always don't like having to go through each of the steps. We want the thing right now. Just last week we talked about there's no easy button, and so some of the biggest changes in life are going to take some of the most time. And when you're talking about a big vision or a big goal, and you're talking about how you have to change, some of the times it's a mindset change. Some of the times there's deep seated things that you think one way and you have to change the way you think. Well, that's not going to happen overnight. There is no easy button, there's no shortcut. Now there are efficiencies, but some things you can't just know an answer and all of a sudden tomorrow you think that way, or your mind's renewed to that way of thinking. It just takes time. And if your why is big enough, and the reason you're wanting to reach that goal or that destination is big enough, then it's worth the time that we have to take. So this week I had to remind myself of these things. This week I just had a feeling, man, what I want this channel to be, some of the other projects that I'm working on and the progress I've made on them, just some of them felt so far away. And if you want to learn more about how there are no shortcuts and how there's no easy button, you can check out this video right here. But until I see you again, stay on the path and keep living that more intentional life.